Hello and welcome to Coffee and Bonsai with Tom. Today we're going to do some Dwarf Jade forest pruning. Three different trees, so hang on, get yourself a cup of coffee, sit back, and enjoy the pruning. You can see this one. This is a variegated Portulacaria Afra, and it's grown quite long. You'd have to check the playlist. I think we last pruned this about 4 months ago, and you can see it's really it's getting it's just like a mass of branches here and foliage. And, it's hard to see. You can only really see two trunks currently looking at it from the front. So it definitely needs, a pruning. And, I'm not going to do, structural pruning on this really. I just want to neaten it up, kind of get it back, and get rid of, a lot of this overgrowth. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'll just start with the main tree here in the front. And I oftentimes like to start at the top because it sort of sets the tone for how much you have to take off the rest of the tree, and you get your sort of angle on the way down. And, they tend to grow heavily on the top, so it's usually a good idea to, take care of that. Um, and so here we go. I'm just going to nip it and cut these back. Most of these branches, we did sort of branch selection in the past, and there'll be some more of that as the trees advance. But I think for now, literally just want to shorten it back, so we get more branching and compact growth, and really create some negative space between these various trees and their neighbors, so that you can see the charm of the forest. I've got some stuff here that's growing straight down. Um, I can't use that, so I'll remove that. Yeah, these have really grown quite well, actually, and I'm a bit surprised because I don't know if it was maybe 6 weeks ago, maybe it's been 2 months. I don't know, but these were kind of hit by mealy bugs. I think look at that one. Yeah, there's a lot of long growth here. Maybe it's been longer than I thought. I'll have to check the playlist and see when I last worked on this. But yeah, this one was hit with mealy bugs, basically from my $25 bonsai infestation. That tree brought in some critters. But, I kind of caught it pretty early and hammered them back. It was just more diligence of, you got one here, one there, and just kind of diligently working on it till they're gone. But, you know, and they sort of, I don't know, what I found, like when mealy bugs are attacking these things, I mean, I guess they're literally sucking the sap, and they must take a fair amount because sort of the vibrance of the tree kind of disappears when they're under attack like that. So, but they've recovered now. They're nice and plump and fat leaves and looking good. So I'm grateful for that. Um, and yeah, with these forests, you really just have to take it a step at a time. And you know, um, I'm not gonna really hammer this back because these kind of grow kind of slowly. And put my hand back there, you can see, kind of clear the top out a bit more. But I just want to get it back, so it looks maintained, looks like I care about it. Um, it's kind of like a lot of my gardening, and the outside. I'm not an expert outdoor gardener, but I want it to look like I care, so I try to keep up with the maintenance. And I've really fallen behind on a lot of these forests. So it's one of the reasons why I'm going to be pruning several of them here today to just try to catch up, quickly. But at the same time, you don't want to rush this kind of stuff, like particularly if you're tired or wow, look at that. I'm just going to take that right off. If you're tired or you're not feeling well, you know, just save it for a day when you have some energy. Look at that. Wow. Because what I found is if you get in a rush or if you're just not into it, you're not going to take the time and do the kind of job you want, and especially on something like this where you're working on a forest. Like, I mean, it's just detailed. There's a ton of decisions to make, and you want to be in in a good physical and mental state to sort of go at these things. So I think the main tree looks pretty good. We'll come back and look at it more later. This one in the middle is kind of invading its neighbor, so I want to create some space there. This little guy, I had this one in the corner is sort of like a bush, and you can see it's kind of charming, but it really needs to be simplified. So I'm going to take some of this downward growth out. There's like a really low branch here that um, I don't need. And, just get it back to where you can see its structure. I mean, I sort of want it to look bush-like, but I want it to be a tiny kind of abstract version of a bush. I don't want it to actually look like a bush. Um, and so I just want to thin it out here and get rid of some of this downward growth so you can see the trunk. And we'll get more branching on this too as I take it further in. And like in these variegated, the leaves miniaturize quite a bit, which is sort of, I guess, counterintuitive because, they need a lot of light because they have so much white on them in order to, they like a lot more light. And you would think that in an effort to get more light, they would grow larger leaves, but I have not found that to be the case, at least with these ones. And I think most of my variegated all came from the same uh, sort of garden. I got this material off a person on Facebook Marketplace who does landscaping for folks, and so these probably all came out of a garden area that the owner was trying to clear, and so they're probably all from the same parent, even perhaps. So yeah, this back tree again, and no surprises. I'm just taking it back and neatening it up. It's kind of like a more of a maintenance haircut than any kind of structural pruning. I'm sort of happy with the overall shape of the forest, but they do get um, overgrown and completely out of shape. So you really have to periodically come in here and um, get them back on the road to looking like a forest. I really like. I kind of like how this forest has come out. I think the pot. I mean, the pot is clearly way too deep. Although I really love the color. And so, excuse me, I'm going to look for something in the same hue that is just a lot more shallow. And I'll probably eventually I will, repot this into something because I think it'll just be much more charming with a much thinner uh, pot. And I'll sort of um, take off that branch. It was kind of coming straight forward just to create a little more space in the back. Um, but I will Yeah, eventually repot this because I think a smaller pot and maybe raise some of the trees up a bit more and change the heights will really, improve this. So I'll probably do that this summer. And this tree is also grown quite well. It's got a huge branches coming straight forward and into the neighbors. That's another thing when I repot. Maybe I gotta figure out the balance between how big I want this forest to be, and if I get a bigger pot, I can kind of spread them out a little bit more. But I don't know what I've done with some forests in the past is really try to constrain it to the current pot, and then when it becomes obvious that it'd be better, um, to go ahead and use a larger pot or remove a tree, or maybe you need more trees, and so you need a different size pot. So I think I'll try to um, keep this current size for a while, and only move up a pot size when when I see the trees are developing and getting nice detail that I want, and I don't necessarily want to cut it back, and then I can just sort of scale it up a little bit bigger. So we're getting there. This is a tree in the back. Yeah, it's got a lot of thick growth on it here. And I'm just trying to thin it out a bit so light can get in there. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. And this last tree, I think I added this one last time or moved it. I did something with this corner tree, and it's really grown quite a bit. It was obviously one of the youngest trees in the forest, and so I'm just gonna cut it back. I just let it go to kind of get established in there, but I'm quite sure it has some decent roots now, and so I can cut it back. I have noticed with these variegated, at least this specific one I have, well, this tree's old enough, it'd be fine. But if you have like sort of a new cutting, you want to let it grow a bit. Wow, look at that. Look at that. It goes all the way over and it's almost the height of the tree. So I'm going to take that off and yeah, wow. But yeah, they can tend to just give up and die if you cut them back too hard and they're not evolved enough, at least more so than like standard Portulacaria. That's what I've kind of noticed. So that's something to be aware of. And already this one's looking a lot better. I'm just giving it a bit of a haircut. I got a couple of parallel branches there. Remove that and sort of cut this back and give it a nice shape. Again, I think it helps to take leaves that are, see now it cleared it out so you can see the trunk and, any leaves that are going straight up or straight down, it often helps to clear those out of the way. Let me get some of the debris out of here and we can do another, um, you know, survey and see if there's anything else we want to take off of this forest or prune back until we put it back on the shelf and let it grow for probably until spring. I don't think we'll prune this again until probably 3 or 4 months down the line. Yeah, so didn't take too long. Like even though it seemed like hopelessly overgrown when we started, if you just basically apply those simple principles to, take it back to 2 or 3 sets of leaves and or, establish the sort of columnar profile you want, and then do a little bit more thinning, to see the trunk and allow light to come in there and get rid of any branches that are too low. But it looks pretty good. Like I can see, like I can see all the trunks, and it sort of gives a bit of perspective of those ones in the back are, much smaller. Uh, and I think it's been a pretty successful pruning. We will once I clean up the rest of the leaves here, and I kind of know a lot of folks um, kind of grab as they're doing cutting. I don't know. I find that too frustrating. So I just let everything fly and then clear it up later. Um, but yeah, this looks pretty good. I think the main tree is in pretty good shape. Do a few minor tweaks to it. But yeah, let's give it a spin, a victory lap, and I think we've done a pretty good job. Uh, you know, taking some of the shaggy out of this thing, and I will put it back on the bench and take good care of it and grow it on until we can get it outside for the growing season. But yeah, a charming little variegated forest. I think I'm going to call this one. This will be snow forest or something like that because it really, I like how the leaves almost look like they're, trees where snow has kind of fallen and gathered on the leaves and branches, and you know, and with the white pot. I just really like it. So this next forest I call my Bunzan forest because of the pot. I mean, I love this pot. Let's take a quick look at it here. It's also a Portulacaria variegated, Portulacaria Afra variegated, and you can see it's growing quite well. Looks pretty good. It's just grown out a lot. I kind of stick it on the shelf and forget about it. And so I just really want to give it a tune up today. Here's one of the trees that didn't make it. Sometimes you have that. I had a really early cutting that I cut back too hard and looked like it just gave it up. But when you're gonna prune your forest, it's a good time to go through and clean up debris, get leaves, and you know just stuff falling off the trees that you kind of want to clear up. But yeah, so if I look at this one, they're kind of growing into their their neighbors. And so my whole goal here is just to, create some space and just do kind of a minor pruning to this and get it back into a pleasing shape. So I'm going to start with the top and just cut it back. I'm going to go right back to 2 sets of leaves because I want to get a lot of nice, tight, compact growth here. And this is kind of coming straight out to the front, and I kind of wanted to go out that way. And if I just kind of go around the tree, this one is the same way. It's just gotten too long, so if I cut it, I'll get 2 new branches right where I cut it, and then I'll either keep both of them or decide one's not what I want. This is really dense in here, so I'm just kind of cutting back the growth that's straight up or straight down, or just too compact and dense, and just leave leaves and branches that are growing in the direction that I want, which is generally kind of out, sometimes down, but generally sort of out and up is what you're going for. I've got a branch here that it's a back branch. It's a nice branch, but man, it is really crowded out the trees behind it and off to the side. So I'm just going to go around here, and there's one that's straight down, easy pickings, take that out. But one thing I wanted to say about this forest, a lot of times, and this happened to me, and it doesn't matter how much bonsai experience you have, I got a new pot, and look at this pot. I just absolutely loved it. And so I just wanted to get something into it, right? And I had these, all these variegated, kind of a little bit more than cuttings. They had roots. And so I put them in this pot. And, but I really think as I've lived with it for a while now, the pot's just way too big. And I really like the main tree. It's got a nice shape to it. It's kind of hard to tell right now. But I think my goal for this is to, replant these. I'm going to take the main tree and really put it in a much tinier pot because it's really turned out to be a charming tree with nice branch structure and a good height. And I think it would just be much more attractive on its own. So I'm not going to do that today, although I certainly could. I'll just kind of prune these up and we'll let it grow for probably, I don't know, 2 more months in this pot. And then onto the second tree now. And, there's not a lot to do in this one. It doesn't have a whole lot of foliage on it. But, like I said, I will just eventually transplant these into smaller pots. And I think with ports, it's better anyway because they really seem to like, not a lot of room for the roots, right? So if you have a smaller pot, it tends to dry out quicker and the roots fill the pot more quickly, and the trees just seem happier in that situation where they don't really have a lot of root room to run. Otherwise, they just spend all their time seemingly kind of sending out roots. So you either want kind of small or shallow pots, in my experience, work really well for these succulents. So I'm just kind of looking at it from the front here and trying to prune that back tree because I want some extension off to the left, although it's really eclipsed by the front tree. And I'll be pulling this forest apart. I jumped the gun, like I said. We get these beautiful new pots, and we just can't wait to try them. And now that the novelty's worn off, I think what I'll do is, once I take these out of here, I've got some of my much larger variegated that I've, you can check the channel in my playlist and see some of those, which I think will be much better suited to this pot, particularly with the white kind of catching and the brown kind of matching the trunk and the foliage. So look for that. I'm just kind of going around and fine tuning now. I just sort of like to, once you get everything in the basic shape you want, I just sort of go around and really fine tune it and, really kind of, basically I almost always reduce everything back to 2 sets of leaves because, you just want everything's more compact and you want more movement because, when I cut that, I'll get 2 branches coming out. And then, you do that again and again and again, and before you know it, you've got some really nice ramification with a lot of movement and taper to the branches, although it does take longer, but not all that long with these. They're really a fast growing variety. Even this slow growing variety, I think you'll find grows more quickly than many bonsai trees. So yeah, that's the main tree. I think if it fills out and fattens up a little bit, I think it'll be a kind of a handsome little tree. It's got good branch structure. So I'll clean this one up and we'll take a spin and have a look at it. And yeah, this pot, I never get tired of looking at it. I don't know why. I think it's probably um, one of my favorite Bunzan pots. It's got like a nice, it walks a nice fine line between being very earth toned, but also flashy at the same time. And I think that's why I like his pots, is they kind of have, one foot in this kind of classic sort of shape and earth tone, but there's a bit of a splash of color, which I kind of like, and it works well with trees like this that are they've got color to them. Maybe you've got white, it almost looks like blossoms, and then you've got green, and so if you have a sort of a flashier pot, whether it's blue or brown or some sort of intense color, it provides a nice contrast. So let's take a final look at this. Looks a little dry. Probably need to water it. And you can see the main tree there. And we've got this tiny guy over here, which has got some nice branch structure. It just needs to fill in. It's more of a, kind of a broom style. And then this one off to the right, which is just kind of eclipsed currently. But that's it for this tree. And we've got one more to work on. Which is it's a Lilliput variety in a Volcano pot. So this one's put on a bit of growth. You can see the trunk is finally developing some character, right? It's got some bark on it. And, this is just a great variety. Look at the size of these leaves. And, this isn't even in a tight root space, which tends to make them even smaller. I mean, it's just a fantastic variety. You get zoom in here a bit. You get really small, tight growth, and it really helps you create the illusion of a larger tree. And look at the bark. I mean, that was a nice surprise for me. I didn't realize that the Lilliput variety puts on a nice bark. And honestly, I think this is my second year of these, so they're not that old. Now a lot of people say Lilliput grows slowly. But I don't think that's true. I mean, they appear to grow slowly because the growth is like, a third of the size of a regular Portulacaria. But if you actually look at the number of branches and leaves this thing's putting on, it's a pretty respectable growth speed in my estimation. So I feel that they do grow fast. It's just they're so small that it doesn't amount to much in a similar time frame as like a regular port, but it's a great variety. If you don't have Lilliput, I really recommend you get some. I'm really, really happy with them. And I'm thinking of growing one out just in the ground, well, in a large flower pot this summer. Just let it go wild and see what kind of trunk I can put on it. But let's look around. I don't want to do structural pruning on this. I kind of have the branches set, so I just really want to come in and get rid of growth like this is going out the back and crowding its neighbors. We've got a lot of branches coming out from the same spot, like up here in the top. So I'll start by just kind of more or less profile pruning, where I sort of cut the top back and get it to the shape I want. And then once I can see that more clearly, I typically go in and then get rid of branches, because it's the classic thing where you want to go from one branch divides into two everywhere. You don't want one branch dividing into three, because you'll get a lot of you get a fat swelling there. And this is getting a bit long in the outside. I'm just pruning it up. I mean, it'd be nice to get some branching out there, and I've got a lot of tight growth here on the top, which is kind of what I want. I mean, it sort of gives it a natural sort of high to low profile. But, like I said, I want it to be more compact and closer in. Although this is pretty dense. But you can see we've got some branches that are pretty long. But my general advice with these always is to you know go back to just one to two, maybe three sets of leaves, but most often just one set, and then just keep doing that. And you know, you can probably do that with a Portulacaria, like I don't know, 5 or 6 times in a single year, and really get significant ramification. Um, so yeah, I'm still just doing the profile pruning and just kind of coming in and getting the shape down. It's kind of hard to see sometimes. I realize, like looking at the camera here. Um, but you're just trying to create space and layers, and anything that's too long that grabs your eye in an unappealing way, I typically just take it right off. So this tree on the left here really needs some more work, and I'm really having it sort of fill in some foliage on the left hand side. And much like the previous forest that we just pruned, I think I was jumping the gun on this pot a little too. It's been great to kind of grow it out on here, um, and I haven't completely decided. I mean, I think it does capture the idea I wanted, which were if you see like sort of a small copse of trees kind of growing on top of kind of a mountain or a volcano. It's or kind of a lava field. You know, but I feel like, in part of that design, I did want the pot to be a bit overpowering because it's, kind of a volcano. But I don't know. I haven't completely decided, but I feel like I have some pots that are that are much more suited to these three little trees where I can kind of spread them out a bit and you can really kind of see them. And so I haven't completely decided, but I'm probably going to do that. And then, because I think this pot would be great for sort of a semi cascade kind of coming down off the mountain and hanging down, and, something that's sort of a bigger specimen that's going to fill up more of this space with a single tree. So look for that. I've got that coming probably in the springtime. So I'm really getting serious on this guy now. I'm just going to like I said, profile prune. I come in here and cut leaves and branches that are, in this case, coming up too far, and I want to create some space so that sunlight can get in there. And, it just gives it a more natural look as an actual tree. So I'm going to also thin out some of this stuff on the top because, like I said, if you don't, all those branches will just make the top fatter and fatter at the cost of the rest of the tree where it'll sort of not want to grow. And this is kind of a nice little branch off to the right. I'm going to shorten it in a bit because I want to get more branching and more options coming off there. But this front tree is actually, I think, quite a nice little, it's your standard, I don't know, informal upright tree. It's not a particularly interesting style other than it's, really small and nice tight growth. This one on the right, it's still way too dense. I really want to get it to the point. I'm not going to radically prune it, but I want to see some layering in there and see some trunk. So I'm just almost, I call this my weed whacker approach, where I'm just coming in and thinning it out. And I find it's pretty effective, and I've been reasonably happy with the results. I know Nigel uses his blue scissors. I don't have blue scissors. Maybe I should get a pair, but I do think that kind of profile pruning with species that just grows like crazy can be quite helpful. And I think that's about a wrap for this one. I don't want to take too much more off. And it's a good time for the thought for the day. I think a good one is, much on these pots, like I guess it doesn't matter. I was going to say something like, don't get too gung ho with a new pot, but hey, why not? It's all part of the hobby. And, these trees, it's not like they've suffered for it. if anything in a larger pot, they'll probably stay healthier because they have more access to resources and whatnot. And with that, it's just about a wrap. You can see here we've restored the triangle shape. And this forest looks pretty good. I think I'll round the top off a little bit here. And we'll take a victory lap. Just kind of pruned them up. Got a lot of space between them. You can see Sasquatch, Bigfoot there in the background. And looks pretty good. I keep just kind of maintaining this on this. The bark looks pretty good. And, I think this little forest is developing more and more character. And I look forward to seeing where it goes in the future. And I want to thank you for spending time with me today and pruning up these 3 forests. And hope you had enjoyed it. And I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon.